Welcome to our 10th and final installment of Extreme Factory Makeover, the Operational Efficiency Edition. Once again, my name is Ann Kroom. I'm an employee owner and InSource Solution President and CEO. It's truly been my pleasure to host these 10 episodes over the last few months. You know, when our teams dreamed up this series, our objective was to take a common management directive, namely to tackle a project to improve operational efficiency by 10% and go in depth on the questions we have heard from plant managers, to project leaders, to plant engineers, to operators on the floor throughout the entire project lifecycle, beginning to end. And although we wanted to thoroughly explore the topic, we also wanted to create something that was short and digestible. The ultimate goal is to make your organization more productive and profitable. And one way is by tackling these specific complex topics and hopefully making them a little simpler and more approachable. Now, I would love for you to give me feedback directly on how you think we've done and whether you found value in the series. Tell me what you'd like to see us change in our next series. My email and phone number is on the screen, and I look forward to hearing from you. Now let me turn it over to someone with a tremendous amount of firsthand experience in transforming manufacturing industrial operations with our final words on the topic on how to improve your operational efficiency by 10%. Scott Miller is Managing Director of InSource Consulting, and who better than him to round out this Extreme Factory Makeover series? Scott?
Thanks, Ann. My name is Scott Miller, and I'm an employee owner of InSource Solutions as well. I've had the pleasure of working with dozens of clients over the years in the deployment of various data collection and reporting systems, continuous improvement and lean manufacturing transformations, as well as the development, deployment, and integration of OEE into manufacturing systems. Now, that for a preamble definitely explains my gray hair. If you watched episode 2, you might have been able to tell that I have sort of a like-dislike perspective on OEE. It's an easy metric to latch onto and even get deployed, and yet its real value lies in getting deployed effectively. So while this episode closes out our series, I'm not going to recap everything, but I am going to give you 3 takeaways that reinforce what you've heard, and hopefully will help you to understand why we would take 10 episodes to tell you the story. I want to talk to you about why you need to first start with the end in mind. Second, recognize where to draw the line between standardization and customization. And finally, challenge you to recognize that the conclusion of each project actually presents your next opportunity. Sounds like I'm waxing philosophical, but hang with me because actually these topics are much more about common sense than philosophy. That being said, I'm going to quote a philosopher here. Voltaire said, "Common sense is not so common," which is exactly what we find to be the most common when people take on an OEE project. So what do I mean by start with the end in mind? Well, we opened the series by talking about what's possible, what's the scope, and how do I build a plan? An OEE project is not really about deploying a process or some technology. It's really about facilitating an improvement in performance. Do you want that improvement to be sustained and built on, or are you in it for the short haul? Of course, very few people take on a project with the intention of it being a flash in the pan, and that's the point of starting with the end in mind. For all of its routines and repetitiveness, manufacturing presents an ever-changing and dynamic environment. It's probably a good bet that if you've been watching this series as it's been released over the last few months, the conditions of the line or the process you're targeting for an OEE deployment have already changed. And how about the people? Are they all the same? How much will have changed a year after you've completed this project? It's doubtful that you would have expected 10 episodes on how to deploy an OEE solution. But did you think about the level of detail that matters in how you select categories and reasons for events? Did you consider all the other processes and activities that impact the data that you're going to be collecting? If you looked at how and when and who will consume the data, did you imagine it could be so many? We encourage you to go back and consider your scope again. This time with the end in mind, not only considering what you want it to look like, but what conditions you think may change. How can you design the system not only for how you want it to turn out, but to accommodate the potential for change in the future? Recognizing that your project can set the foundation, the first of many possible steps that support real continuous improvement, is the reason you should keep the end in mind. All right, that was about reflecting on some of the early episodes. Now let me offer up a new nugget. As you're designing the processes and the interfaces where people engage and the reports and the dashboards that people will consume, think about how much you want to be standard. That's a simple word. And if I ask most of you if you want to provide a standard interface, you're likely to say, yeah, because it's more cost effective to produce one that all can use. How about standard reports? Well, sure, a couple that are one size fits all, that's the most cost effective, right? Well, actually, some of the guidance we provided in episodes 4, 5, and 6 lead you in the opposite direction. The processes and the tools need to fit how people work. Think about how to standardize to how the people using the tools will work. That means understanding the environment and the situations of the users. Now take that to its logical end conclusion. If you're a developer, that dreaded word just popped into your head, customization. If you're a project manager or a finance guy, another dreaded word just popped into your head, more cost. Balancing the project cost of customization and the opportunity cost of standardization, though, is key. Think about it like a max-min problem. The greater the value of the standardization, the lower the cost up front, but also the less likely it will generate sustained value. Your opportunity cost goes up. The greater the level of customization, the more it costs up front, but there's more likelihood it will generate sustained value. Your opportunity cost down, but your value goes up. You need to work toward an optimization of both. There are some elements that need to be standard, the same across the board, like loss categories, interface specifications, and core report formats. There are some elements that need to be customized, like loss reasons that are specific to machines, and the time threshold response by an operator, or the order of reports that a particular person uses to perform their analysis. We challenge you to consider a third category, though. What needs to be consistent? It's a layer of design that allows standard content to be operationalized differently without requiring process or software or hardware changes for people to make the best use of it. It requires some thinking and design and some effort by the user, but strikes a good balance. In reality, much of the time we find there is little that ends up in that category called consistent. But just having those that are designing the solution and those that will use the solution think about where that line gets drawn, that gains buy-in from both sides. Where it should be, standard or custom. Considering the issues from each perspective, the people, the process, the technology, and the discipline execution generates a level of ownership that is really what we're seeking. And that's really what leads to adoption and eventually sustained value. All right, we're in the home stretch. Let's talk about the long term. It's said and been proven true that 80% of the opportunity cost or potential for success is determined in the first 20% of the project. Those early design phases. Let's go back to that chart we saw earlier. No one takes on a project expecting to be unsuccessful. Likewise, few take on a project really thinking about what comes next. An OEE project is one of those where you can do that, though. At InSource, we like to use the concept of scalable solutions to describe that. It is possible to deploy an OEE project as a pilot, or what we call a point solution. This point on the scale allows us to test it out or provide some initial results on which we can build a case for greater value. You can do that at a very low cost, low enough in fact that it's not a terribly significant loss to simply start over again when you decide to look at rolling it out to a broader scope. Many of our clients find this pays for itself not only in savings, but in what they learn about how to move forward effectively. The next point on the scale is where you invest a little more time up front. Follow the script we provided in these episodes and do some due diligence as we presented, and deploy a framework solution. This means exactly what the word implies. We gather enough requirements across the people, process, technology, and discipline execution dimensions to design it with the framework of where it can go. Perhaps we don't fully flesh it out, but the foundation and the infrastructure are in place to allow us to expand in the future while providing real tangible benefits now. Our clients that engage at this point on the scale have a pretty good idea of what they can achieve, but they're not quite in a position to take on all the aspects that will bring value now. They know it's worth setting themselves up for the future and the success that it may bring, though. And that last point on the scale is the program. We call it the fully sustainable solution. We know there's a significant value to be achieved, and you're in a position to invest, to look at it from as many angles and perspectives as possible, and then take the time to fully transfer the knowledge and skills from your partners like InSource to your own organization. Clients who've taken this approach have invested significantly. and yet they've benefited even more significantly in multiples of return on investment over the short and the long term. Furthermore, their opportunity cost is reduced as well because the knowledge is transferred. If you're a manufacturer that has multiple sites, you can provide the people that we can teach to roll it out. Your need for a partner going forward is optional, not required. And there are two more benefits to consider. First, your team fully owns the result. And second, understand that a solid OEE program directly extends into new solutions in areas that drive focused improvements in things like quality, energy, yield, resource management, scheduling, asset optimization, just to name a few. The concept of scalable solutions from point to framework to program is our way of working with you to consider that the end result of each project you take on does present a new beginning or a new opportunity. So allow me to close by telling you what I told you from the beginning. Start with the end in mind. Use the concept of standard, consistent, and custom to get to what will bring sustained value. And take on your project knowing that when you get done, you will be presented with a new opportunity. Now, if you haven't been able to tell from our presenters thus far, we love working in manufacturing. It's a dynamic, exciting, and sometimes very complex environment. We hope that we've helped make the complex a little simpler with this series. Please call on us. We look forward to the privilege of coming alongside and helping make you more productive and profitable.
Thanks, Scott. Well done. And in closing, I'd like to simply second 2 points that Scott made. Number one, we at InSource have a passion for manufacturing, and in fact all industrial environments. We believe they're critical to our economy, our security, they're our path as a society to real innovations, and well, sometimes they're just cool. And our mission here at InSource is to help your organization become more competitive as a manufacturer in today's global environment. Number two, as such, we would like to have the opportunity to work with you. And as I hope you've seen, we and our partners have a lot of expertise in OEE project deployments. But that's only one of our areas of focus. Our sweet spots are listed here on the screen. And while we are subject matter experts in these areas, we respect and know the fact that you know your business better than we ever will. But we also believe that when it comes to looking for transforming your organization in a substantive way, it helps to have an outside partner to focus your efforts, to challenge your internal assumptions, or simply bring your ideas to life with a fresh perspective. We would like to be that partner, so please call us. This series has most definitely been a team effort, and as we're closing it out, I'd like to take a short moment to give a special shout out to everyone involved in its production. Thank you guys, it's been a lot of fun. And finally, for most organizations, a 10% improvement in operational efficiency results drop significant additional operating profits to the bottom line. In fact, the largest deployment we were personally involved in last year, that number was $2.8 million. And we hope we've inspired you to take up the challenge. And whether that means thousands or millions of dollars for you, the improvements are attainable. There's no catch. And we at InSource hope to be there to help. Good luck.
I'm Kevin Modlin. I'm going to talk about fault-tolerant servers for a minute. Many of our customers have situations where they, for regulatory reasons or other reasons, they can't afford to have a gap in data collection. One example might be historical records of your process parameters. When you have a need like that, or if you need your applications to be available 100% of the time, you need to consider how you'll deliver those and what hardware you'll use to run those. A solution for that is the Stratus fault-tolerant server series, which have redundant everything. They have pairs of all parts of the server, pairs of CPUs, pairs of memory, pairs of everything. The server can run with any one chassis or both chassis. We'll show you that in just a minute. So this is our Stratus fault-tolerant server. It's a 4U size. When we take the cover off, you see that there are really a pair of 2U chassis inside that 4U rack. Each of these is partnered to the other, and with, as I mentioned before, with redundant everything. So it has pairs of CPUs that run in lockstep, pairs of memory banks that run in lockstep, so that we can lose either one of these chassis and the system will continue to run. A perfect use case for this is in the virtualization world. So buy one fault-tolerant server, run many virtual servers on top of that. In my case, I've got a single instance of a server operating system here. On this Windows 7 machine, I've got a terminal server session to that server, so I'm going to maximize that and start a video here. So this video is playing in a terminal services session from this server. I'm going to reach around and pull the power out of the top part of the chassis. So now one half of the server has gone dark. The video is still playing here because the partner chassis takes over all of the processing. This is a user replaceable unit. We don't need to worry about what's inside here. Stratus ships us another one of these. We slide it in, put the power back in to the back of the machine, and it resynchronizes and puts itself back into a fully fault-tolerant state. So consider that for mission-critical applications where you can't afford downtime, something like a fault-tolerant server provides that extra layer of protection as compared to clusters or server farms or those kinds of things. It's a single device managed in one place, but gives you full